If this goes on, don't panic. Bringing hope to the world through speculative fiction.
Everybody.
Yay!
Woo! Welcome everyone to If This Goes On, Don't Panic. Today we obviously have a live episode. We have author and publisher Zig Zag Claybourne, who will be breaking our record as the most times guesting on our show, previously held by Cadwell Turnbull. But before we talk to Zig, we also have Nadia Afifi, who is here with us, and she was a guest of ours quite some time ago, actually about 3 years ago, I think. It's been a while since we did one of these live episodes, so just to refresh everybody's minds, we invite two guests on to chat, one for the first half hour and one for the second half hour, and then sometimes there's bleed between the two, and everybody chats together. So. Fun stuff. So before we get started, let me just introduce our first guest really quick, Diane, and then we can start chatting. How's that sound?
Sounds ideal to me.
All right, fantastic. So first we have Nadia Afifi. She is the author of The Sentient and most recently The Transcendent, which was the final novel in her trilogy. She's also published numerous short stories, including at Clarkesworld, which she leaves out of her bio for some reason. She grew up in the Middle East, but currently calls Denver, Colorado home. When she isn't writing, she spends her time running, hiking with her dogs, and working on the most challenging jigsaw puzzles she can find. Welcome, Nadia.
Hey, thanks for having me again. Great to be here.
Wow, thanks. Thanks for coming. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt. It's been a while. I can't wait to catch up and see what you've been up to since we last spoke. That's great.
Yeah, I think I need to update my bio. I don't know why I left Clarkesworld out of there, but definitely something I want to brag about.
Well, I had to give you a hard time about it because I noticed that. You left Transcendent out too, and I added that in there for you because I was like, what is going on here?
Not promote
I'm in
yourself.
A state of chaos.
Cool.
Absolutely, totally understandable. So, like talking about your books, you have officially finished your trilogy. The first time we talked to you, you had just published your first one, and now you're on your third one, or you just finished your third one. I just read your third one, and it was excellent. I really enjoyed the ending. How's it feel to have finished the whole trilogy now? You've been working on that for years, right?
Yeah, it's mostly wonderful. There's definitely a little bit of a bittersweet quality to it because I just, I've had these characters and this story in my head since like 2012 when I started writing the first book. So I ruthlessly killed off one character that I loved in book 3.
Good for you. Well done.
Yes, you did.
I know.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, Alan reached out to me on the side and said, "How could you do that?" I'm like, "I'm a monster."
Well done that you made him say that. Good job. Excellent.
That's funny because there have been numerous times where I was like, Nadia, what is this? Like, what are you doing with these characters? It wasn't as bad as the second book though. You just really, I could not believe the people you killed off in the second book. Oh my God.
Yep. Yeah, I'm kind of I'm conflicted about the whole big character dies in a series because I feel like it can be a kind of gimmicky thing where people do it for shock value or it's just it kind of cheapens like the elevating of stakes. But for those two characters, I felt it made sense and it raised the stakes in a good way. And it was necessary for Amira to go through that because I need to put my main character through hell before she comes out on the other side. So yeah, I went for it. But yeah, I mean, overall though, I'm proud of finishing it and how it ended. And that ending has actually been in my head pretty much from the beginning of writing the first book. I knew exactly how I wanted it to end. I knew where I was going, and it was just finding the best way to get there. So when the time finally came to actually write out that scene on the spaceship. Alan, you'll know what I'm talking about. It was quite emotional to actually finally type it out. What's been playing in my head for a long time.
Oh wow, that's awesome. That brings up a couple questions for me. I want to step back 1 second, and you were talking about killing off some main characters and the impact that has for the main character, for the main character, and for the books altogether. Like, for any writers who might be listening to this, like, do you have any tips on like how to effectively kill off characters, but not, go overboard, like perhaps George R. Martin might come to mind for some people.
Yeah, I think definitely having a long-term plan for the ramifications of that death, like obviously the emotional impact of that death should continue to be touched on and brought up later on in the series. If you just kill off a character and then it doesn't come up again in a meaningful way, then you're in that gratuitous killing off a character for shock value category. And I think also thinking through the plot ramifications of killing a character, like what does that death mean for everyone else who's left behind? So like with book 2, there was a very specific reason to do with kind of the general plot of the series with consciousness transfer and whether this cloning experiment was going to succeed. So I knew that character had to die to get to where I wanted to in book 3. And then for the death in book 3, it was definitely an elevation of the stakes and the danger for the main character. Like, that character who died was kind of a brother figure, a protector, somebody who got her out of bad situations. And when you eliminate that, it forced Amira to lean on other people and also, take care of herself, essentially.
So make it count and have a long-term plan for the ramifications. These are the TLDR I'm getting.
Yep. Make it count emotionally, make it make sense for the plot.
Perfect.
And do you have long-term plans for the characters you're killing off in your books? Because I know you're killing them off.
Oh, yes. Am I going to tell you what they are? No, read the book.
Oh, I love the joy with which you said that. Oh, yeah, I'm killing them off.
Of course. It's a war. What do you want?
Yes. Oh, I have no illusions about how Diane feels about her characters and the levels of viciousness she's willing to affect them with. So having read her first one, Diane's first book, like the first half of it is like, okay, this is pretty chill. Okay, it's kind of like a chill fantasy, and then you get to the second half and you're like, oh my god, what just happened? Like we just went to a bad place. We're now in the bad place. Good. Everything is horrible, and I feel scarred now. That was Diane's first one, so her second one will probably be worse. No, worse as in more, I'm feeling more pity for the characters.
Cool.
Diane's like, I don't know how to take that.
No, hey, you know what? You're planning on reading the second one. I know exactly how to take that. Thank you.
You're welcome, of course. So Nadia, you brought up endings. Let's talk about endings a little bit. A lot of times I'll read a book, whether it be a series or a single novel or whatever, and you'll read the ending and you just be like, oh, okay, that was the end. Like, I really wanted something more out of that ending, but I did not feel that way about your book at all. And I in the ending that you obviously had planned for quite some time, really worked well for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. What kind of planning goes into making an effective ending, and why do some people's endings just not work as well?
Years ago in a writing workshop, I got really good advice on how to write a good ending, and I think it stuck with me, and I have applied it to everything I've written, whether it's like a full-length novel or a short story. And that is that an ending should give resolution, but it should leave you hanging a little bit. There should be something kind of lingering or not quite resolved that makes the reader kind of think about it and wonder afterwards. Like if your ending is too definitive and too clean, it can be kind of anticlimactic. But if there's something kind of left unresolved or something emotionally, like maybe, the good guys win and they save the day, but at a very high cost that haunts them forever, or something to that effect. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of my kind of guiding light for a good ending.
Cool. I had not heard that advice. I will have to keep that in mind.
Diane.
No, I was just saying the end of the series is obviously a long ways away. I'm planning on, 4, maybe 5 books, right? So, yeah, but I'm not entirely clear on it yet, So I'm like, I have ideas of a couple things that have to happen, but I like that advice, actually, Nadia. Thank you, because there are some things
nice.
Know how I'm going to resolve them, and maybe I don't have to, right? Maybe it would be to leave them kind of hanging. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the tricky thing for me also is writing an ending that's not too predictable, but is still kind of in line with what the reader expects. Like, I feel like, Game of Thrones is like the big guilty party here, but like the TV show specifically, I think, was so focused on, upending expectations and surprising the viewer that the ending just was a total mess. I mean, I'm not saying anything controversial there. I think most people feel that way about it, but
yeah, agreed.
Characters like acting out of character. Yeah, same here. I was so angry.
I even understood where they were going with it. Like, okay, I've got a personal fan theory here. We'll find out if this is true, right? I have a theory. Now, I have not met George R.R. Martin. Some people in the community have, because he comes to SIFWA gatherings and, he's at sci-fi cons and people meet him, right? But I have not. And my theory is that he actually intended to end the books pretty much how the series ended. But you see, in the series, they rushed it, right? They did everything in one season, and they needed at least 2, possibly 3 more seasons in order to do the slow build that would have made that ending make sense and leave all the things in there that led the reader, or the watcher in this case, right, on the, breadcrumb trail to go, okay, that makes sense. But because the reception of the ending was so hostile, for obvious reasons, they did not make it work in the show, he's now second guessing himself. And this is maybe one of the reasons why he hasn't finished. This is my theory.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right about that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he gave the showrunners like the general direction of where he wanted to go. But like you said, it wasn't earned at all. The pivots that the characters made were too fast and too extreme. And they basically forced characters to act out of character. It's like Tyrion was like this brilliant, intelligent, 5 steps ahead of everybody else character for 7 seasons.
The reader is smart. 8, he's just the viewer is
a total
smart.
mess. He's just making terrible decisions left and right. And viewers pick up on that. We're not dumb.
Seems like everything comes back to Game of Thrones eventually.
I mean, it's a good example, right? Because just about everybody's seen it. So it's useful as a comparative in order to illustrate story structure, especially since it was so good in the first few seasons and then went to shit, right? So
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, at some point I'll get over it and I will recover emotionally from season 8, but I'm not quite there yet. So I just bring it up as a random example all the time.
That's so funny. Are either of you watching the new series? Is the new series even going on anymore? I don't know. I'm not watching it.
It is. Yeah, they finished season 1, and I think season 2 is supposed to start relatively soon. And at first I swore I wasn't going to watch it because they burned me once and I wasn't ready to get hurt again. But we watched it one random night, and it is quite good. They've done a good job with it so far. And at least it's a complete story that the material is all created. So hopefully that helps them.
I will catch up with it then. I've been waiting for someone to watch it and tell me what they thought. So cool. Yeah.
Right.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I was so burned out. I was so burned out from the end of Game of Thrones, the first one, that I was just like, nah, pass. Next, what do we got here? Yeah. Well,
that is a completely valid thing. So.
Yeah. So talking to you both at the same time, this has been kind of interesting because Nadia, we kind of got to watch you grow as a writer from book 1 to book 3, and I'm always curious how Diane's stuff is going to turn out when I read it because she's on here absorbing all these tips and ideas from all these writers, right, while she's writing her work. So it's gonna be
Oh yeah, free writing class. This you know my secret now. This is part of the reason why I do this podcast. Yeah.
no worries.
No, seriously, I do learn a lot from our guests, and I do take it in and I think about it and I do try to apply it. So hopefully it will, have an effect as I realize the rest of the series and whatnot. But yeah, it is very helpful. You're quite
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I just think it's so interesting to watch newer writers evolve. More interesting than watching mid-career writers kind of like do that thing where they're really good and then their books suck for a while and then they're good again and because that's just too random and scary. But watching new writers, just get better is really cool. I'm wondering, Nadia, like what are some things that you've learned along the way that you plan to apply to your next series?
Yeah. No, I was definitely a baby writer when first came on this podcast, and my first published novel was actually the first novel that I ever wrote. So I have not gone back and read it recently because I know I'm going to pick it apart and look at all the things that I would have done differently and done better. I definitely think I've gotten better with each successive novel. I've actually written 5 novels now in total. And, you should be getting better. Like you should be getting, better at your craft and kind of more confident with what you want to do. I think the big lesson that I've applied is kind of with plot mapping and with starting your novel, making things character based rather than event plot based. And what I mean by that is like you start off with a character who, has a goal, and sometimes it isn't the right goal for them. It's not what they should be looking for. But then you throw conflict at them, and then through the course of the novel or the series, they evolve and they overcome those obstacles, and their goal often changes. And that's a concept that there's a book called Story Genius by Lisa Cron that lays that out really well. And I read that kind of halfway through my writing career, and it was like a light bulb. It made total sense to me. And I think a lot of my earlier writing, I was focusing heavily on the plot and what kind of things do I want happening, what kind of conflict, and then you kind of mold the character into those events. And I think it works a lot better if you start with your character and then build everything from that. All of your other characters, your storyline, all of the action and climax and all that good stuff. So my current novel that I'm plot mapping, I am starting with people, and I think that creates a story that readers connect with more, right? Because I mean, like sci-fi readers, we all love all of the cool world building and
Absolutely.
planets and space stations and all that stuff. But what makes a really memorable novel is characters that you want to come back and spend more time with.
Awesome. Hey, Bob, thanks for the sub. Thanks for stopping in. I hope you've had a great holiday so far. If you guys are watching this on Twitch, then RPG Dinosaur Bob streams RPG, obviously, and world building content. We're both involved in World Anvil's event, World Ember. It's coming to a close here in the next 24-ish hours, and we've been sharing that, so check out his channel. Anyway, yeah.
We haven't done such a live episode in so long that I almost forgot that there were people watching. Are there any questions out there that people want to ask Nadia?
Oh, hey, Flub, good to see you. Hello, Flub said hi in the chat. Yeah, questions are an option anytime for the live audience, and I'll read them off and then we'll answer them to the best of our ability. So don't forget that that's an option, guys. Y'all been so quiet out there. I mean, I don't blame you. I don't want to interrupt Nadia either. She's fun. So
okay, well, Nadia, one of the things I really liked about these novels is the contemplation of consciousness and memory, and how memory kind of like creates who you are, and all of this sort of a thing. Why did you choose to focus on that topic?
I've just always been kind of fascinated with the concept of human consciousness and what makes somebody, like what makes you you. And, I kind of started off the first book as a contrarian take on human cloning, where, cloning is not a bad thing. It's kind of the fear and the panic and the kind of the people around it who make it dangerous. But the story kind of evolves to this idea of using cloning as a type of consciousness transfer. You clone your body and then you move your consciousness when you're getting close to death, so you can kind of carry on and live life in your same body, and do that as long as you can, and basically achieve human immortality. That's what some of the characters in the novel are trying to do at any cost. And Amira kind of finds herself, in a conflicting state of wanting that as well, but, trying to stop some bad guys from, adopting it in a very ruthless way.
Yes.
I'd read some books on, quantum mechanics and quantum physics, and I am not smart enough to understand like 20% of it, but that that idea though of like consciousness being like a core part of reality in the universe, that we're not just things that exist on a rock, but that our consciousness interplays with reality in a fundamental way, and
Right.
particles and waves take a certain state based on whether they're being observed or not. Like that's just such a fascinating and spooky and wonderful idea to me. And so it's just pretty much any kind of fiction I write, consciousness and plays some part in it.
That's awesome. We do have a question from the audience. This is addressed to the writers in the room. Flub asks us, where do we get our ideas from?
Oh man, that's a hard one.
Right.
Usually like a kind of what if question. What if we were able to clone people, but religious fanatics were doing anything they could to stop it? Like I usually kind of start off with some premise like that, and then I build around it. I think about a theme or a story I want to tell, but I honestly don't really know what my process is. It's usually not like a magical light bulb moment where I know everything about a story. I kind of start with like a little like tendril of something, like a character, like a city, an idea, and then I just build off of it. And running is really where I build out my ideas. Like I'll think about something while I'm running, and then by the end of the run, I've been in that zone for a while, and an idea forms.
And you don't have to think about the fact that you're
Makes
running,
sense.
which is horrible. So that's.
I know.
Why don't we get Zig Zag to chime in here? Where do you get your ideas?
Okay. Let's bring Zig Zag in. Let me read his bio first, since we haven't done that, because very important.
Yeah, and we are at the half-hour mark. Yep.
Okay. Here we go. Okay. So Zig Zag, who is our second guest, Zig Zag Claybourne is the author of the adventures The Brothers Jetstream, Leviathan, and its sequel, Afro Puffs Are the Antennae of the Universe. Other works include By All Our Violent Guides, Neon Lights, Conversations with Idris, and the latest, a rom-com called Love Factually. His stories and essays have appeared in Apex, Realm, Galaxy's Edge, Giganotosaurus, which I can never pronounce the name of that magazine, Strange Horizons, The Year's Best African Speculative Fiction, and others. He is the 2021, you might have to help me with this one, Zig. Kresge Foundation Literary Fellow. Find him at www.zzclaybourne, which is spelled CLAYBOURNE.com. Welcome, Zig.
Hello. Everybody.
That'd be ZZ for some of you out there who are like,
yes, for our listeners across the waters,
and our listeners up north of you.
Yeah.
So where do you get your ideas?
Most of my ideas come from a feeling. I generally start off from a feeling, and it can be something extraordinary. Like for one of my stories, I was like, how would you feel living under the Spanish Inquisition if they had convinced you that they were telepathic? So I just went from there.
Cool. That's very cool.
I don't usually start off with the plot. That kind of grows from the characters. Like Nadia was saying, you let your characters breathe.
Yeah.
But I always, there's a feeling that I want to explore.
That's awesome.
I want to jump in real quick and just let Nadia know. Nadia, feel free to contribute to this conversation if you would like to, or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, for sure. I'll keep hanging out. And I got to say that is such a better answer than going for a run.
I know. Okay, you guys are going to love my answer. This is good. Okay. I tell people this and I'm not even kidding. I take a nap.
Oh, yeah.
I have so many interesting dreams. Usually one of them will spark an idea. And if they don't, often what I'll do is, okay, I've got this plot hole I've got to figure out. All right. Okay, I'm thinking about that and it's time to go to bed. All right, I'll sleep. And I wake up in the morning and I have the answer. Yeah, I take a nap.
Oh, yeah.
That is awesome.
Bath time is also a great place to dig out ideas.
Sorry.
I tell people that all the time that I do a lot of my writing actually in the tub.
Me too.
Because I do it first, I do it on, padded papers first. So that's a perfect place for ideas to just generate because you're in your own little bubble of thought and emotion and idea. It's all swirling right in that one space. So you can just dip your hand into the deepest well of creativity, find an idea, find a plot, find a concept. You don't even really have to look for it. It will come to you. And that's one thing I think a lot of people, don't tell writers is that you don't have to look for the ideas. They come to you.
You just have to recognize them when they come. Yeah.
Yeah.
I use my husband's bathboard as a table and I write with my laptop. I have killed 3 of them.
I'm not brave enough to try it with the laptop yet.
More often somebody forgets to turn the shower off and it hoses off my computer.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Sorry, ADHD mess. I apologize, but yes.
I'm just glad that you haven't like electrocuted yourself or anything, because I immediately thought, oh, watch it fall in, like the old like the toaster in the tub kind of thing. You know what I mean? But,
yeah, no, honestly, it's not a danger with something like that because it just kills the battery instantly. So yeah, it's fine, honestly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I know I'm a little crazy. That's okay, but it's worth it though. It's worth it because like Zig Zag says, this is where a lot of some of my best, thinking about my plot comes from and where the best ideas about what the characters are doing and who they are. This is where I find it really works well. So, okay, so I lost a couple $100 laptop once every few years, whatever, Yes, Flub in the audience says I am a lunatic, and yes, I am. Yes.
Yeah. You got to replace your computer every couple of years anyway. Honestly, these days, that's like that's like 100 years in computer years. So
there you go.
I do have a question for Nadia and Zig Zag together. Having read a lot of both of your work, you both write about psychic phenomenon quite a bit, and just to give a little bit of historical context, psychic phenomenon was pretty big topic back in the early days in like the 40s and the 50s and whatever. And then it kind of died out, right? Like in the 60s and the 70s, and then just stayed dead for a while, but it has kind of come back quite a bit. I'm kind of interested in why you both were interested in psychic phenomenon and felt like that was, just a cool thing to write about.
Well, I'll jump in first. So to me, art is all about connecting ourselves to something else, each other, the world, the universe. So when you start looking at things like the interconnected mind, telepathy, and things like that, it blurs the boundaries of individuality, number one, which is always good for stories. Like, who am I? If I'm a Borg drone, is there still a me in there anywhere? So that's why I love playing with that, because reading a book is one of the oldest forms of mind melding with people. And to get to explore something like that with a story that takes it just maybe a slightly different way, like a gigantic psychic whale whose dreams influences the entire world, that's just nothing but pure fun.
Makes sense to me. Interesting question too that you posed there about where is the limit of the self, in relation to others, especially when your consciousness is joined in that way. That's something I explored in a thing I did for Game of Poems recently. So that's cool. And Nadia filmed it. Oh no, I'm sorry, you weren't done, and I'd love to hear more.
I don't know, what you said just kind of sparked something in me, because we're kind of seeing the beginnings of that just with something as simple as how we interact on the internet.
Valid.
It's like, rather than, our mind to mind link, it's a constant, our opinions, our thoughts, we're constantly throwing them out there onto this, imaginary web, hoping that they slide along and connect with somebody else. So we're getting already there to that one gigantic hive mind.
I believe it was a Robin Williams comedy routine I was watching where he was talking about how kids today, they're all like little witches coven sitting there at the table communicating telepathically, right, with their devices. So yeah, valid. Mm-hmm. No, you got a good point there.
Yeah, echoing what Zig Zag said, I think, the concepts of like a universal consciousness or interconnected consciousness has always been, a cool concept to me. I think it's still a relevant one. Like, we're not talking about psychic phenomena as much, but, things like psychedelics, I think kind of, explore the idea of, connecting with other people and sensing what other people sense. And for me, near-death experiences are just a really interesting thing. Like, I love reading about them. And I think from a practical, like, writer point of view, it's also something that people can universally relate to, like just wondering what happens after we die. Is it the end? Is there something that follows? Are we going to see our loved ones again? So, one of the short stories I wrote that appeared in magazine of fantasy and science fiction, the Bahrain Underground Bazaar. That's a big part of the story. Is you have a woman dying of cancer, and she's trying to watch other people's near-death experiences in a virtual reality so she can know what death is going to be like. And then she gets one that implies that death is not the end, and she goes chasing to learn more about it. And, I've had a lot of people reach out to me about that story in particular and say that theme just resonated with them, like whether they were going through something or lost somebody recently. It's both just a comforting idea and an interesting idea. So yeah, I think playing around with the psychic just gives you a lot of good material, and it's material that your readers are going to connect with.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
Makes sense to me.
I want to switch a little bit, switch directions here a little bit. Zig, you recently had a Kickstarter, but you're also a publisher. You run your own little publishing company there. Your new book is going to be called Breath, Warmth, and Dream. So first of all, I wanted to ask you, can you give us an idea of what your new book is going to be like? Maybe just like vibes and characters or something like that. And then I wanted to ask you about what it was like to do a Kickstarter versus publishing traditionally. But let's talk about your book first.
It's the first in a trilogy, and the vibe is kind of like, think Terry Pratchett's Tiffany Aching books crossed with Cadwell Turnbull's sensibility.
Ooh.
So if you can melt those two, it's kind of a cozy thing. It's magic. It's a fantasy. It takes place in kind of an else world, but at the same time, it's very much a character driven piece. I don't focus on the magic system, which a lot of the times that takes away from the character drama that you can have in a piece. I didn't want to focus on the mechanics. I want to focus on, it's a mother, a daughter, and they're both witches traveling this kind of a ancient Earth world. And the story is about those two and their travels, and not so much about, what they can do and the bad guys who they face. Although there are some definitely nasty people in the first book that they face. And as for the Kickstarter, that was an experiment. I shopped this book around to, my agent shopped it around to all the big guys, and everybody was like, I love it, but. And, what followed the but was always, can you change this or that? Which, as a writer, that goes with the territory. But most of the changes were not of the type that would make the book better, but would make it generic. And I am just flat out against that. I was like, no, I am not going to do that. So this was almost a case of me as a writer being a diva saying, no, I'm not doing this. I'm doing it my way. But it wasn't being a diva. It was, the story was what it was. My agent agreed with me. Even, I had beta readers, writers who have been, in the business for a long time, who I respect. And they agreed. It's like the changes that you're being asked to make will just kind of flatten things out a bit. And this book is anything but flat. So I decided, a friend of mine is a writer. He'd done several very successful Kickstarters. And he's like, do a Kickstarter for it. And I was against it for a lot because to be honest, I don't like investing that much time in marketing stuff, which
I hear you.
That's not me. I would much prefer to write my stuff and then talk ages and ages about somebody else's stuff. But I decided, as an experiment, let's do it. Let's see what happens. So I set a very small, basic goal. And long story short, that goal got blown out of the water 9 times over. So I'm like, okay, something resonated with people about this story. Either is that, or they think that I'm a lot better good looking than I am and that I plan to come visit their town, or I have no clue. But it performed well beyond my expectations. So the book is written. The book will be released in April 2024, just a few months away. So I am excited. And the second book is actually already written too. I've just got to polish it up and get it ready to go. So really, I am starting 2024 with the third book, which is something I have never done. I've never written 3 books that quickly, but the story from the very first came to me, these 2 characters, which it kind of came from a short story, which is at Giganotosaurus, which you pronounced perfectly, sir. Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And, I knew after I wrote that short story that I wanted to do more with these 2 characters, with this mother Kamala and her daughter Nadi. And that's where the first book came from. And the whole idea for the trilogy was just follow them through different periods in their lives. So the first book is mother-daughter. Daughter's like about 8, 9 years old. Second book, the daughter's a teenager. And the final book will be them well into their later years.
Sweet.
So that is something that I am very much looking forward to working on in 2024, getting the first book into people's hands and getting the second and third books ready for subsequent release.
I'm excited to see the evolution of that relationship. That's something that a lot of writers don't really do. And well, not unless they're setting out to write, family dramas over generations. But that's a really cool, dynamic, because of course the relationship between the characters will change dramatically during that time. And I like how you're going from well into their, like the childhood of the daughter to well into their later years. Because of course, the daughter's going to end up caring for the mom, right? Or not caring for the mom, and that's going to be the choices that she's going to have to make. And in some ways, now that my mother is older, right, I'm starting to see that shift in the relationship somewhat. And it's really interesting to me. It's cool that you're going to explore that. That's neat.
Yeah. And, it's been explored in fiction before, even in fantasy fiction. But a lot of the times it presents it as this dichotomy of almost a battle. Do I want to care for my mom and I didn't want to do that, because if you've grown up with this fantastically magical mother and this wonderful traveling life, then it's a given that you're going to want to care for her.
Right.
So I didn't want to make that even a crux of the book. That doesn't even come up. It's just, the like you said, it's the relationships change, not so much the dynamic of the family, but it's a fascinating thing to see them grow into the different roles.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I talk about the Kickstarter aspect for just a moment?
Sure.
Right. Okay, I've been postulating for a while. I wrote a piece for it for the SIFWA blog a few years ago that crowdfunding, I think, is the future of publishing, at least genre publishing, right? And the reason why I think this is because there's this growing gap. I mean, good for you if you made one of the big four. Not faulting you. Congratulations, you're awesome, right? But the big four have very specific things that they want to publish, and they kind of control most of the infrastructure nowadays, right? Most of us who are in genre, we know perfectly well that most of our favorite magazines depend upon crowdfunding in order to keep functioning. That's really one of their cornerstones now, right? The big anthologies that we're in, they tend to depend on crowdfunding too, right? Now we're starting to see some bigger success stories with authors independently crowdfunding projects, which their readers want to see, but the publishers may not necessarily get, like the story you were saying, Zig. So I think that this is a good thing, right? And I think that we've all been complaining about the state of the industry for the past little while. In the SIFWA community, the writer's strike in Hollywood has, gotten everyone up in arms because all these companies are trying to replace everybody with AI. They can't, right? But, maybe it is time that the workers had the means of production in their control a bit more, you know what I'm saying? And that the readers have a bit more control over what they want to read. So I think this is cool, and I'm glad more people are going for it. Good for you.
And that's exactly what's happening now. We are seeing that authors have the means of production now. The game has changed. My little Obsidian Sky publishing company can put out a book that looks exactly as good as anything one of the big guys do. Sit them side by side. You won't know the difference. So
yeah, especially since the big guys are now doing, actually probably the editing will be better in your smaller company, because I've noticed that even the big people are like, I don't know, I read this Greg Bear book recently, and it was written just a few years ago, as opposed to some of the stuff that, of course, is now classics in the field, right? And I was like, who the shit edited this? This spelling mistakes. This is the wrong there. I think they just ran it through a spell checker, right? Because they don't want to pay editors either,
Yeah, that's something I've been seeing for a while now, where, you'll see something come out. It's a big release, and on page 4, there's this big glaring typo that's like, did no one catch this? It's not even like buried on page 200. It's on page 4. So yeah, you don't have that argument now that self-publishing or even, small press or crowdfunding is somehow a marker of this is an inferior product. You don't have that anymore.
That's right.
You got Brandon Sanderson doing his own crowdfunding, which that's nobody's going to ever catch that goal that he did. That was just absolutely outstanding what he did. But, other authors can say, look, you want to read this. You've told me you want to read this. Here it is. Help me make it. And people are hungry to do that.
I think so too.
Readers want to see these works, and they know the only way they're going to get them is if they jump in and become a part of the process. So we're seeing a lot more of that, almost direct from writer to reader action. And I for one love it.
Awesome. Me too.
I'm very curious, Nadia, you are more of the traditionally published author here. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm traditionally published, but with a smaller press, and Flame Tree have been really, really good to me. But I've also kind of struggled though to break into like the big four now, I guess, and like Zig Zag, what you were saying earlier, we loved it, but I've gotten so many rejections from big four editors with that feedback. And it's always been very risk averse. But I think, post COVID, they're understaffed. Their editors are overloaded and they're reluctant to take on things that aren't a sure thing. That, bring a little bit of risk to them. They just don't have the time and the ability with that's just my reading of it. But, I think I love that it's becoming more open and that there's opportunities for crowdfunding and reaching out directly to readers. I mean, I think the one area where the big publishers still have that edge is just distribution and access. They can get their books in so many more places. And but you also could be, a small fish in a big pond. Like, just because you get picked up by a traditional publisher doesn't mean that they're going to give all the marketing and time and resources to your book if there's something bigger coming out. So it's a very complex double-edged sword for sure.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, you're right. They still definitely have a much better distribution system. And if you can tap into that, all the power to you, right? Good for you. And I'm glad. But yeah, for a lot of us, that's, becoming more and more of a pipe dream these days. And, we have other methods we can use, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think like the people who have the best of both worlds are authors that have a built-in readership. Like Gail Carriger, I mean, she's traditionally published, but she also self-publishes her own stuff and writes them the way she wants to. And she's got such a solid reader base, she can be hybrid, and it's worked out really well.
Yep, valid.
Interesting. So what part do the small publishers play in that? Because Nadia, you just got me thinking about that. And Flame Tree Press is kind of like a big small publisher, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But, and having Zig Zag here, who is a true small publisher, like how does the small publishing company fit into that?
Well, the small publishers are the ones who will take those risks. They're the ones who are putting out, novels and short stories that people talk about years after they're out, as opposed to, this is the blockbuster that's, being talked about for the first 2 months, but then you forget about it. It's always been the indies and the small presses who put out the work that challenges the reader. And I think readers love being challenged. It's almost like, I always throw the analogy out, like everybody loves a good fast food burger, but it's that special meal that took hours to prepare. That's the one that you're going to remember later in the year or even years later when you're just thinking about experiences that you had. I like to approach a book as an experience and not just as a product or that dreaded word, content. I think that it's the smaller presses that are going to be definitely seeking out authors who are putting out the work that is, I'm not even going to say groundbreaking. You don't need to always break the ground, but at least, till the soil just a teeny bit so that some seeds can grow from it. So that's what we're going to see. That's always been what the smaller guys have done. We'll be seeing even more of that.
Awesome.
Nadia, what's your take?
Yeah, I think Flame Tree is an interesting example because, I think it has that advantage of a smaller press and that they'll take more of a chance on you. And also, when you're with a smaller press, I think they don't have as many resources with marketing and distribution, but they will work harder for all of their authors. You don't feel like you're, one of a big portfolio, and like they've always been really good about marketing and helping me promote when it's time for a book to come out. Flame Tree does have a pretty good distribution for a small press. I mean, they partner with Simon and Schuster, so I have gone to bookstores and seen my book there, and that's always crazy exciting. And I take a picture with my thumbs up and big smile. So you get some of that benefit of a bigger publisher, like not the full benefit, like the advances are smaller and the distribution is less, but you have a kind of inroad into that, but not the negatives of going bigger.
Yeah. You made the points actually that I would have made there. That's the role of the small press publisher, is bridging the gap, I think, because they do have access to some distribution. It may not be as broad, right? But you don't have to do it all yourself, which is a pain in the ass. For anybody who's done that, we know. And, it does give you that occasional thrill of, hey, look, my book's in the bookstore. That's cool. So yeah, still worth it for small presses to get out there and do their thing. They're still serving a valuable purpose,
Yep. Yeah. I mean, when I talk to other authors who are in, with big four publishers, they're really happy, but it's not sunshine and rainbows. They have issues with editors. They have issues with, making changes, getting marketing to support them. So, the grass is always greener.
Fair enough.
Yeah, you definitely have to go with the side that keeps you wanting to writing, So some people go trad, some people go indie, and some people hybrid. But whichever path you take, it's got to be the one that keeps you feeling the joy of writing. That's the end game for me.
Because if you don't enjoy what you're writing, you're not going to do it, and then nobody's going to read your books because there won't be any. Yeah.
Yep.
Flub in the audience here has a question. She wants to know, can people buy direct from you? She'd rather do that than buy on Amazon, and she lives in the UK.
We're seeing more authors doing that too, where it's direct sales. So most authors, if you go to their websites, they do have a direct sale option for you.
Yeah, that's. Oh, go ahead.
And
the only kicker is shipping. Like, most, if you're in the UK and the author is in the US, shipping can bite you, but the book will be available.
Yeah, for me, I don't have direct sale, but if you want to avoid the kind of Amazon monolith, you could go to Flame Tree Press and buy my books directly through the publisher, which, puts money into a small press directly and benefits me as well. Yeah, great question.
And I believe Flame Tree has a UK location, don't they? I'm pretty sure they do.
They do. Yeah, I think, their headquarters are London.
Flame Tree, I have to say, I've been pretty impressed with them as far as, like you say, they're a big, small press, but I've been pretty impressed with them as far as small presses go. They actually contacted us, I don't know, like a while back, and they keep contacting us to, promote their writers, right? So they're doing a lot of, outreach work for the writers that are writing with them. And they've even sent us samples of books to read, which is fantastic, right? Review copies. And so, they're getting out there, they're doing the thing. And that is why you go with the press. If that's the benefit of not being an indie, right? You don't have to do that crap yourself, right? There's somebody out there who's got your back, and Flame Tree clearly has the writer's backs.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to Flame Tree real quick, but then it's time already, believe it or not. So we got to ask our last couple questions and wrap this thing up. But Flame Tree, yes, has been the most consistently in contact with us, most consistently sends us ARCs, be that digital or physical. There's a couple much smaller presses that also do that, but I'm talking presses that are run by like one person who I have relationships with. But Flame Tree will reach out to me and just say, hey, here's a list. Do you like anything? Are these interesting to you? Or sometimes I will just get something in the mail. I don't know if they send you stuff randomly as well, Diane. I believe they have sent you stuff before, though. And yeah, they're just the best with that stuff. They're really great. So super shout out to them, and Sarah who runs the marketing over there. She's fantastic, or at least outreach to podcasts anyhow. Okay, so last couple questions. So any longtime listeners know what these are. Start with Zig, and then we'll go to Nadia. You both answered these questions before. Nadia, it's been a while for you, so maybe your answer has changed. Zig, you are our most frequent guest at this point, so I don't know if you have anything new to add to this, but I'm going to ask you the question anyway. What's giving you hope right now?
Right now, I am getting hope from the fact that people haven't given up. I mean, it's as basic as that. People are still out there doing They're doing what they need to do to be hopeful. because it's so easy to feel beat down and just say, hey, the world is the world. And people aren't doing that. People are out there swinging. So I will always find hope in people who are putting on the gloves and doing the job.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Nadia, what's bringing you hope right now?
Yeah. I think as a kind of crotchety elder millennial, I actually get a lot of hope from Gen Z and from, seeing younger people so engaged in politics, in, sharing information. I used to have a kind of crankier version of Gen Z just because I didn't understand them and I'd grown up differently. But I feel like the next generation is going to lead us in the right direction.
Awesome.
And
so the penultimate question, what are you doing right now and where can we find it? Zig.
I am working on book 3 of the Kumalo trilogy right now. You can find me at, again, zzclaybourne.com. And also, I do want to say, I thank you for mentioning that the Love Factually, which is a holiday short story that I put out there, that's available everywhere. It's only ebook, Amazon, all the usual places. So go out there. I've been told people are enjoying it. It's a funny, satirical take on the Hallmark rom-coms. So that's me for the year. Between now and April, it's all about Mother Kumalo Book 3.
Awesome. Nadia.
Yeah, I just finished a short story called The Generation Chip, and it's going to appear in an anthology of Palestinian sci-fi and speculative fiction called The Time Travelers, and that's time like the spice. And so that is not yet out, but to be released. So I would just look up The Time Travelers and you'll see when that's coming out. I'm also working on my next novel, which is about a guild of time travelers, the actual time, not the spice.
Awesome. Out of curiosity, does that have anything to do with that Clark's World story that was published fairly recently?
It does, yeah. The Lonely Time Traveler of Kentish Town. It's set in that same world and includes some of the characters in that as well.
Awesome. I really enjoyed that story, so I'm looking forward to that when it is inevitably published. Got to put that positivity out.
Fingers crossed.
And Nadia, where can we find you?
You can find me at I have a website, www.nadiaafifi.com. I'm also on Twitter as The Doodles, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook under Nadia Writes Sci-Fi.
Awesome. Well, thank you all both so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. This has been great.
Yeah, really lovely to catch up with you both, and I'm glad to see that you're both doing well.
Yes.
Thank you for having me again, and enjoy this coming new year.
Oh, we will. Thank you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, thanks, Alan and Diane. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
2024. Holy cow. All right.
Bring it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If This Goes On, Don't Panic is edited by Alan Bailey and produced by Ken Schrader. Our theme music is by Father Flamethrower. Additional music is by Christopher Snydrowski and outro music by Sable Aradia. Intro by Dave Robinson. A special thanks to our guests, Zig Zag Claybourne and Nadia Afifi. Thanks for supporting us, and we'll see you again soon.